Perfect. I think we can begin with the session. Hope you're ready, Velanki.
Sure.
Sure. All right. Hey everyone, thanks for joining in. Welcome to the community webinar organized by Foundership. To those who do not know about Foundership is a Web3 accelerator providing incubation to Web3 startups through its programs like 0x Camp and Launch Camp. To know more, kindly visit our website at foundershiphq.com. In the world of supply chain management, trust and credibility play a vital role in ensuring the authenticity and transparency of products. The concept of ONDC, Original Non Duplication Certificate, aims to establish the provenance of goods, preventing counterfeit products from entering the market. We are joined by Vilanki today, a product leader who will bring more light to this. Over to you, Vilanki.
Hey, hi. Firstly, thanks a lot, Vadit, for having me over here. I'm pretty glad to share my views and learnings with everyone. I'll quickly start sharing my screen. Let me know if you can see the screen.
Sure.
Yeah. Can you see the screen? Vadit, can you see the screen?
Perfect. Your screen is visible.
Lovely. So the whole, I mean, for the entire idea is, as Verdit mentioned, it's all about credibility and trust. That matters in the commerce, and ONDC by the our government in a way is trying to do this. So the idea is to figure out what are the parallels between the ONDCs of the world and the blockchain. How can ideally the ONDCs platform be built on a blockchain system, and what are the key building blocks of the blockchain that ONDC should have leveraged or could leverage per se. And all the content that we are going to discuss right now is more for educational slash purpose, and nothing specific to a particular company or anything as such, right? A quick intro of myself. I'm Harsha. You would see my LinkedIn profile as well, Lankisri Harsha. I'm a product professional. I've been in multiple companies. I've worked in the space of supply chain, in the space of e-commerce, and now I'm with Z, which is a e-commerce, OTT platform that we run. Beyond my professional side, I am an avid learner. I keep learning new things, and I am a tech nerd. I like anything that comes out in the tech world, and I try to wrap my head around it and see what can be the applications of the same. Uh, More importantly, the way I see the future per se is it is in empowering three key underlying human needs: the creativity, credibility, and collaboration. These are the underlying needs of humans. We are just trying to evolve the way we meet these needs, leveraging be it AI that we are seeing being at the peak right now, or blockchain, or even XR for that matter, right? Uh, so that's more about me. We'll move forward. So quick thing. If you have any questions, you can actually put it in the chat. We'll answer them, and hopefully we can make the session interactive, and we'll learn together and grow, right? So what do we are going to cover? Predominantly an overview of e-commerce, m-commerce, or quick commerce in India, what, why, and how of ONDC by the government, basics of blockchains, and how can we leverage blockchain for offering ONDC like services, or how can we augment ONDC leveraging the concepts that are available in the Web3 side of the world, right? So, how do we buy goods today, right? In India, right now, despite the whole media covering the giants of Flipkarts or the Amazons of the world, it's still only 7% of the overall market share. Right, the rest of the 93%, we either go to a nearby mom and pop store or to a mall to buy goods. Now, especially in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, the penetration of e-commerce is much lesser than the tier 1 cities. With that being the case, still there is a huge potential for e-commerce to grow in our country. And to enable that, the government has come up with the concept of ONDC. Before we jump into ONDC, let's just have a quick look at what are the current platforms that are there out there, right? The e-commerce right now is predominantly, if you look at it, there are horizontal platforms, the likes of Flipkarts and Amazons of the world. Then there are very vertical focused ones, which are trying to expand into multiple areas, like the Swiggy's and Zomatos, which are in the q commerce or quick commerce or food delivery or hyper local sort of a thing. While we also have instant matchmakers like Olas and the Ubers. But why do we even use all of them? The reason is trust. We trust that these platforms help us, or would be there to resolve any issues that we face. But what is the challenge that we are facing because of this? The challenges are, though the entire value creation that is happening is centered within these platforms. What I mean by that is, the buyers are now having to explore multiple platforms to figure out what needs to be done, or what products they can buy from where. And also they have to do a lot of price comparison and check for offers and things on those lines. That way it is increasing the effort or the load for the buyers also, despite the comfort of goods getting delivered at their home place. There is no one shop for all the things that they would need. They have to hop from one application to the other application. I'm pretty sure many of you would have faced this challenge where you are trying to book a cab. You start with Uber or Ola and jump onto the other and start comparing the prices in both. Right. More than the buyer, the challenge is with respect to the sellers. So, from a seller standpoint, it's not sufficient that, let's say, if a seller gets themselves onboarded on Amazon, that doesn't mean that their goods would be available on Flipkart. So they would have to have a separate onboarding process for the Flipkarts of the world, right? So each platform would have their own set of rules, regulations that these sellers have to follow, which in a way becomes challenging for the seller in terms of their operational overheads. Along with that, the challenge, they also have a huge challenge in terms of their ratings and reviews being stagnant, or being static, more to say, being married to a particular platform. What I mean by that is, if I'm a seller and I'm being rated as let's say at 4.5 over 10,000 reviews on Amazon, but I could be the same seller, and because I have not paid, let's say, for my promoting my products, my rating on Amazon or Flipkart is zero, because none of them are even buying my product, because I haven't paid for it per se. Right. With that, there is no way of me transferring the credibility that I've earned on one platform into the other platform. So that's another huge challenge for the sellers. Last but not the least, the bigger challenge is centralization of power and the take rate control that the platforms have. Again, if you take the example over here, Amazon can come out and say, I'm blacklisting a particular seller because they've not delivered goods, or they have not, they are, or they are actually selling goods to other platforms also, and are not exclusive to our platform. With that being the case, the seller doesn't have any option over there. So there, the entire power is centralized with the platforms. Now, to address these challenges, the government has come up with ONDC. Now, what does ONDC even stand for? ONDC is Open Network for Decentralized Commerce. Let's just have a quick look at the website of ONDC. website in order to understand the offerings that ONDC as such gives. But one thing, we'll jump back to the slides, but I thought I'll just quickly highlight the key aspect over here, which is the coverage or the breadth of offerings that ONDC in a way has, right? It covers food and beverage, which in a way is your hyper local, and also it can do the B2B transactions. And at the same time, this financial services and generic services, be it in terms of education, home services, and all, are something which are being planned for to be onboarded on ONDC. But very simply put, ONDC is trying to decentralize this entire commerce space, not just for the marketplaces perspective, but also any product and service that you consume would be made available to you through ONDC, is the whole concept of ONDC. And why does it even matter to us? It matters to us because once the way UPI has picked up, today every one of us are using UPI, and one of the key reasons or the success driving factors for UPI has been the MDRs being zero. What do we mean by that? Whenever you do a payment transaction, be it by card or net banking and all, the seller or the service provider has to pay certain amount to the banks for offering the payment services. In case of UPI, that's not available, that's not there, so it's a free transaction and they will get the entire amount being remitted into their accounts. With government's push behind ONDC, there could be a huge adoption over time for this, though there are some challenges in terms of how disputes would be handled. It is still a very great initiative by the government. Now, just to showcase the breadth of things, as you can see over here, ONDC is a centralized thing where which has the identity and trust being enabled through our government's digital public infrastructure. On top of it, it is trying to enable multiple businesses. So what are those? Be it hyper local, that's nothing but your food delivery, grocery delivery, and all, or hyper local services also, which could include something like your urban company or urban club. Even mobilities could come as part of it. uh, i- in a way, the breadth of services that it can offer has no limits of sorts. Anything that, wherever there is a transaction which is happening between two parties, ideally ONDC would want to be over there and offer services, be it on the B2C side or the B2B side. Now, on the B2B side, there could be agricultural transactions, credit operations, or even logistics that could be powered through the platform. With this happening, we'll have to take into account the fact that this alone wouldn't be sufficient. As in, how do we even achieve this would be the next question. For that, let's have a quick look at what ONDC is even trying to do, right? When we say decentralization, we basically are having going to have buyer apps, seller apps, and support ecosystem. Now, what do we mean by buyer apps? Let's say you and I go on to Paytm and we search for a particular product. Paytm has integrated itself with ONDC. Now, what happens is all the sellers who've been onboarded. Let me show you this with uh, uh, yeah diagram over here. As you can see here, the buyer side apps is where the consumers come from, and the seller side apps are nothing but platform on which the sellers have onboarded themselves. These are not controlled or owned by ONDC, but the entire backend is being powered by ONDC through its databases and protocols that they have come up with. So that way, for buyer, they can get onto one application, get the details, or get the prices across different sellers, and place the order as per their convenience and interest. uh, for the seller, again, it becomes a single stop view for them to maintain their inventory and it getting exposed to different consumers across platforms and across country. right? So that way, the whole centralization that has been happening till now would be eliminated of sorts. And there are subsequent advantages of this as well, which are in terms of sellers being having their respective operational maintenances and all getting reduced. And at the same time, for them, since there is only a single platform, if someone has rated the seller, it would be visible to all the buyers who are coming from different buyer apps, right? And for the ecosystem partners, which is your logistics, payments, credits, credit offerers, the interesting thing for them is that since they have a single source of truth about the seller, about the buyer and the transaction, they would be able to provide better services and get better scale as well, right? Were it any questions that we see in the chat now, or we are good to continue? Okay, cool. So the important thing to note here is, or an interesting thing to note here is, if you've seen or heard of Namayatri. Namayatri is a auto booking platform on in Bangalore, right? Now, this entire application is built on top of ONDC, right? So what is happening over here is both buyer as well as the auto or the ride provider or a driver would have an application, and they use the ONDC platform for booking the ride, and the amount that they pay goes directly to the buyer. So there are no middlemen per se, right? Same thing is being done for the charging stations also. So there is this new initiative which is being worked upon by the government, unified energy interface, which allows a single app to have service providers across the country, and offering different services, and their visibility is coming to the customers. So in a way, it becomes an aggregator, which is not partial to anyone. If the service is good and the ratings are good, those would reflect to for those users, and accordingly, or for those service providers, and accordingly the ratings would and accordingly the business can right? The key value driver per se is that you are not dependent on a single platform. Rather, there is an open network where everyone can come and start offering their services, and if the services are good, obviously those would be consumed by the customers. So with that being the case, we'll just move forward, and we'll also have a look at the underlying architecture, or the key how should I put it, the protocols that drive the entire ONDC platform, right? Whenever a network partner is being onboarded on ONDC, by network partner I mean be it a seller app or a buyer app or any service provider, the ONDC has a contract with them which is called as NPA, Network Participant Agreement, and they are to adhere to those terms and conditions. The second piece is, whenever a transaction is happening between a buyer and a seller, they come up with something called as TLC, which is your transaction level contract. What basically it means is, the buyer and the seller are entering into a agreement saying that I'll send these goods, or I'll offer this service at this price, and it is expected to be delivered to you by this time. Now, as you can see, at the end of the day, all of this is happening in such a way that you're creating transactions between buyer and seller via seller and buyer apps, and the sellers and the seller app and buyer apps as such have got themselves onboarded onto the ONDC platform, and it is the stop or one single source of truth for us, right? So as you see, the overall interaction that we are having over here, if we leave aside the entire NPAs that we are seeing, or network partner agreements and network policies and all of them are nothing but some or the other protocols that we have. And the contract in a way is like a smart contract that is happening on the blockchain, saying that if this has happened, then do this. So simply put, if I've received the goods, then you would get the money, right? Those things are being handled through these contracts. Now that we have learned a lot about, or we've learned about ONDC, let's have a quick look at what blockchain based systems are, right? And the reason that I'm trying to touch base on this aspect is to give you a overview of what blockchain systems are and what are various components of it. Then we can actually come up with a strategy of what are the challenges that we are seeing with the ONDC, and how those could be addressed with the concepts of Web3 world. That way we will get a better decentralized system available for commerce in our country. Now, blockchain based systems is nothing but a decentralized system which is trying to reduce the power of centralized firms. The key aspect of Web3 or blockchain based systems are that the credibility and the ownership of the data is with us. So, Web 1 in a way enabled everyone to read. Web 2 empowered everyone to read as well as write. In case of Web3, the value add that's being added extra is the ownership aspect. However, in my perspective, I would still say it has to be the ownership slash credibility, and the power of AI coming in to power the creativity, and the XR helping us to collaborate better. That's my definition of Web3. But yeah, in the given definitions of Web3, the ownership comes into play, and blockchains in a way empower that. Since there is no middleman, obviously the entire centralized authorities are not needed, and we, the participants on the blockchain, are the ones who are actually driving the decisions in the blockchain as well. And that is being done through something called as consensus mechanisms. We'll cover about the details of the various types of consensus mechanisms in the next slides. The reason of covering it in slight detail per se is to see if those could be leveraged for the dispute management in case of ONDC, right? Tokenomics again is a very important aspect of blockchain. This is like a reward mechanism rules per se that are there on the blockchain, so that someone who has done the validation of the transactions, minted a block, how would they get rewarded? That's done through through tokenomics. Smart contracts, very simply put, is nothing but a rule cast inside the blockchain as part of the software and the intelligence in the system, which will decide whether an action needs to be taken or not, or doesn't need to be taken, depending upon the inputs it has received from the external world. The key value add is, since we have the ownership of our creation. Let's say I write a blog, or I am a content creator, and I publish videos on YouTube, the platform that we are streaming on right now. But today what happens is my videos are uploaded onto YouTube server, and they are the ones who are actually owning it. Tomorrow, if they want to remove my content, they can actually do it at a click of a button. uh, but in the decentralized world, that wouldn't be possible. Your content is owned by you, and someone else can't delete it per se, until unless you give them the rights and you have a smart contract in place saying that they can actually do things on those lines per se. For that, that in a way helps us to monetize our content in a better way, because we have our DNA being imprinted onto the content that we create, and wherever it travels, that DNA is with it, and we'll be able to monetize it better because of the better traceability. Now, the other concept which is of importance is DAOs. DAOs, in a way, help us with is like an organization structure in the Web3 world. Consider it to just to give an example. We have the elections in our country, right, where we elect MLAs and MPs who would rule the country, since they are the elected representatives per se. Now, DAOs are in a way the same thing, where we or the participants of the blockchain are being given the empowerment to decide what needs to happen through a voting mechanism or a consensus mechanism, so that the overall activities that are happening within the chain are controlled by all the stakeholders who are involved. So that's about decentralized autonomous organizations. Now, what are the key applications that we are seeing for blockchain? I'm pretty sure with you, most of the audiences are quite keen on or already in the space of blockchain, and you would have already known this. But DeFi, game asset ownerships, and real life asset ownership or tokenization of real life assets is universal identity management have been some of the key areas or applications of this. Obviously, there are many more applications that are coming up as we speak. Now that we've covered the basics of the blockchain as well as ONDC, I'll just touch base on the consensus mechanisms, and then we'll step into the applications, or what we can leverage the concepts of blockchain or Web3, in how we can leverage the concepts of blockchain and Web3 in the ONDC, or to improve the ONDC system. So, blockchain, as I was mentioning, works on consensus mechanisms, and there are multiple consensus mechanisms. The popular one being proof of work and proof of stake. So, the Bitcoin blockchain kind of uses the proof of work, while Ethereum uses proof of stake. There are others also. So, what does this even mean? Very simply put, proof of work says a person has to solve a puzzle. If that person has solved the puzzle, then they are having a right to add a new block into the blockchain, right? So the second thing is proof of stake, where you stake your amount or your tokens, and depending on who has staked the largest, they would in a way get the chance to mint the block and validate the transactions, and are rewarded accordingly as well, right? Why are these validators even doing this? Because they would be rewarded with tokens, and uh, 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 so yeah, so they are being rewarded with the tokens, right? The other I mean, the sister or an offshoot of proof of stake is the delegated proof of stake, which is very simply put like a mutual fund thing, where you trust a certain person, you give your stakes to him, and he or she decides when to stake and when not to stake, and how much to stake, and accordingly get rewarded for adding new blocks onto the chain. Then comes something called as proof of authority. So proof of authority, we don't have anything of to solve a puzzle, or put in some stakes. It's all about trust. You trust a authoritative figure, and they let them take the decision of adding the transactions. So in short, you have this is very similar to how our current audits happen, right? You have EYs and Deloittes of the world who would come and audit and say, yes, what I've seen seems to be proper, and I hereby say that the entire P&L and balance sheets that are being shared across by the company are valid. So that is what we call as a proof of authority. uh, the other concepts, there are two other concepts predominantly that can be leveraged. Proof of burn. Proof of burn is very similar to proof of stake. The only difference is once you stake the amount over here, it gets burnt and you won't basically your money is gone, but you're anyways rewarded back because of this. The key difference, or the key pointer over here is proof of burn in a way shows the level of commitment of the validator or the miner, that thus ensuring that you are actually getting a better I mean confidence on what you are staking for, right? uh, the last one is a method of more of a consensus mechanism at PBFT. So this is a mechanism where the idea is majority of the nodes within the network have to accept it. If they have accepted that this seems to be a valid transaction per se, then it gets added. Else, it wouldn't. And within this there is an offshoot where at least 65% should be or 66% should accept it, while in a normal case scenario it could also be a 51% acceptance. So that's those are the various consensus mechanisms that are available out there, right? uh, Cool. So now, with the entire discussion that we just had, per se, the key overlaps between ONDC's value proposition and Web3's value proposition would emerge out clearly, I believe. And those are: one, we are all saying it is decentralized; two, we are all saying it is protocol led; three, we are working towards building trust and ensuring that if someone has showcased great results, or is trustworthy or not, is being determined by the entire network, right? So hence my point being, ideally speaking, ONDC could have been built on the blockchain based or Web3 based concepts, instead of it being a centralized development, a protocol development platform per se, on which multiple decentralized entities would exist. Uh, so, so that's the key pointer I wanted to drive per se. The last but not the least, wanted to cover the one, what are the challenges that we see with the ONDC's system, and how can we address them leveraging the concepts from the Web3, right? The whole point of amalgamating both the worlds to get the best out of both per se. Now, one of the key challenges that you might have faced when you've bought from, let's say, an Amazon or Flipkart is you might have had to return goods. And in this case, since it was Amazon or a Flipkart, you were easily able to return them and get a replacement as well, because they, for them, customer experience is the most important thing. However, you would have also heard about multiple cases where people have placed orders on some random sites, assuming they are trustworthy, and later on realize that they have just burnt their hands because there's no one over there to even send the goods or reach out to for help and things on those lines. So with ONDC, and where there can be anyone who can become a seller with just one contract per se. The idea or the challenge that we could see is the commitment of the seller itself, right? So to overcome that, we could ideally look at something like proof of stake of sorts, where the seller or the service providers should be able to stake their be it money or tokens that would be created on top of ONDC, and if they get the right services, or if they are delivering great services, then the stakes could still be reduced over time. That could be the intelligence that can be brought in through from a data science or data analytics standpoint. But having their skin in the game per se will help giving the confidence to the buyers that hey, this seller is not going to cheat me, because there is a huge amount of his or her money being staked to showcase his worthiness or her worthiness, right? A very similar example for this is what you see in case of brokerages. The brokerages, be it Zerodha or any broker firms on the that are to be registered on SEBI, have to pay a good amount of money to register themselves. So that way, there is a stake for them, and the reason of them paying or maintaining money with SEBI over there is slightly different. But in this case, at least it would bring in the trustworthiness into the platform. Second is if we have a token based correlation loyalty mechanism. Now, as you all know, we get cashback points when we use credit cards, or people spend a lot of money in rewarding or giving offers and discounts. However, all the companies who spend a lot on acquisition of customers are also ready or willing to spend money to retain customers. This could come in terms of discounts that they offer to retain the customers and all, right? But if we have a correlation loyalty mechanism, now what do we mean by correlation loyalty mechanism? Let's say if there are 100 sellers on a platform, and all of them come together and say that hey, let's pull in 100 rupees and use those 100 rupees to retain our customers. You can offer discounts to the customers for these 100 rupees that we are shelling out or giving them as tokens. Now these buyers, as they buy, would get the tokens, and when they are trying to buy again, let's say from a different seller, this time let's say I'm seller 1 and there is a seller 2, well, there is seller 2, right? And I sell sofas or furniture, and someone came, they bought a sofa from me, and they've been rewarded with x number of points. Now they go to Vardit, and for they try and Vardit, let's say, sells grocery. They go to Vardit and they buy it from him. They should ideally be getting rewarded because they are doing the entire transaction on the ONDC platform itself. But if they have got 50 rupees as reward in case of buying a furniture, they might not be able to use all the 50 rupees. There could be smart contracts which are in place to decide what could be the spend rate for the rewards that they have earned. And at the same time, depending upon the seller's contribution, or very similar to how we have automated makers in case of DeFi, we could leverage similar concepts for deciding the exchange rates between two different sellers as well. That way, it would help to have a healthy reward mechanisms in place, which can be leveraged by all the sellers in the platform. uh, Another important area is with buyers and sellers using different seller apps and buyer apps. It would also be important it would also be important for all of us to have a decentralized autonomous organizations, because we would eventually come up with ideas and face scenarios which the current platform might not be able to solve. Now in that case, instead of the decision being taken standalone by the ONDC org per se, the buyers themselves could provide the feedback and have an agreement on whether what needs to be done and what shouldn't be done, and that needs to be implemented accordingly. So that way the power actually is with the buyers, sellers, and the service providers, instead of someone sitting who might not have the entire picture with them, or might not be wary of all the challenges that are coming up for the people. Last but not the least, the decentralization of dispute resolution. So any commerce transaction is bound to have any a dispute. What I mean by that is, let's say, be it returns. So apparels in industry as such, from an e-commerce standpoint, faces about 25 to 30% returns, while there could be disputes in terms of the you would have seen in case of Zomatos and Swiggy's, where you asked for, let's say, paneer butter masala, but you've got palak paneer as an example, right? Now with that being a case, it would be very important to have someone resolve those issues. And instead of having a centralized dispute resolution team, it could also be made decentralized, and the resolvers could be given or given tokens, or rewarded based on the tokens, which can be leveraged to buy goods on ONDC itself. So in a way, the whole concept of bringing in tokens, tokenomics, building DAOs, and leveraging the concept of staking from the Web3 world could actually make the entire ONDC proposition more democratized, and at the same time more powerful and empowering, because I as a buyer would have a better trust, because my seller is taking their credibility slash their money into it. And I know for a fact that there are dispute resolvers who can chime in and help me if there is any need that arises. So with that being the case, uh, I would strongly say that ONDC in a way should leverage these concepts and come up with a better, improve the platform as a whole, to make the commerce in our country better, as the objective that they have set forth for themselves, right? That's mainly about what I have for the session. Any questions that you guys have, please share, please shoot. We can have a quick discussion on it.
Sure, thanks a lot, Lanki. And this is quite interesting and insightful, the kind of preparation you had done for this particular webinar. And we appreciate your efforts to impart this kind of knowledge to our community as well. I see one question on the chat by Jishnu, and he's asking whether ONDC can act as decentralization. I'm not too
So
sure. Go ahead, go
I
ahead.
mean, I'm not fully clear on the question, but if I understand it,
Yeah, I
uh,
think it's a bit, it's not framed properly, but I think what he means to say is whether ONDC can have a major role in decentralization or something like that.
oh, sure. So consider ONDC as something like an Ethereum or Bitcoin, right? Where it is an underlying layer per se, which can help building multiple dApps of sorts. So Namayatri, in a way, you can consider it as a dApp. So the whole idea of ONDC as such is to empower decentralization. However, the mechanisms that they are leveraging could be improved, is what I would say.
Got it. And I had a few questions myself after
Please.
listening to you speak. And I just wanted to know how blockchain's immutability and decentralization revolutionize the way we can validate particular product origins.
Oh, lovely. So, ideally speaking, even with the Web2 technologies, we could still achieve those. However, the challenge is the single source of truth, right? is something which is not easily possible. So you might not need a blockchain. You can still have a distributed ledger out there in the market, and everyone can go and validate the traceability, saying that where has this originated. Obviously it would need a huge amount of supply chain revamps in terms of even if we take the example of fruits, let's say, if a mango is there and I have hundreds of them and they are being collected into a carton and then they are being shipped to a distributor, then it is coming to a wholesaler, and finally let's say to a retailer. In this entire journey there are multiple places where the mango spot would or mango would have a, change of hand, right? Now with that being the case, tracking at an individual item level might be very difficult, because it involves a huge amount of overload. So the key aspect over there is to finalizing on the unit of granularity that we want to go into. And the second aspect is, once we decide that, then having that decentralized system or ledger in which everyone can write and update saying that I have done this on this. So it needs to start from the origin and till the end, but operational challenges have to be taken into account. So I hope that addresses your question to some extent.
Yep, definitely. And we have another question from the chat by Aftab. So his question is, what can be a good starting point, and which segment of the entire ONDC workflow will be the easiest to be implemented with smart contracts?
Oh, great. So, ideally, I would say we should start off with the transaction level contracts. That way, the prices and the tax and things on those lines can be tracked within the blockchain, and we can have oracles which can get the information of when the goods have actually been delivered and things on those lines, and over then get into the rest of the layers is what I would say.
Got it. I hope your question was answered, Aftab. Do feel free to use the chat in case you would want to ask anything further. Another question from my side. So, how could these decentralized networks protect sensitive supply chain information while still ensuring accessibility to relevant parties?
Sure. So that decentralized. Okay. So I'll put it this way. The challenge with respect to visibility has always been there. Now, with the zero proof or zero knowledge proof and things on those coming up, sorry, with zero knowledge proof and things on those lines coming up, we can actually be able to validate the transactions much better, but information sharing would still need a proper sense of authorizations being enabled through smart contracts on the blockchain. I hope you got it.
Yep, perfect. Thanks a lot. I guess that's about it from my side. Any other questions for the audience? Do ping us on the live chat. We'll be more than happy to take it. If not, we'll be ending the concluding session soon.
Sure. Okay. You can reach me
So
out
yeah,
on
another question
LinkedIn.
we have,
Yeah, yeah, please.
sure. Yeah, I'll share your LinkedIn ID on the chat as well. So, Aftab
Yeah.
asks, so if TLC is a good starting point, you mean to say we can translate the existing TLC policy to smart contract?
See, that would obviously not be a very easy task to do, because the ONDC protocols and the entire network has been established without a blockchain per se, right? So, but if if we intend to migrate towards the Web3 systems, then I would say we should ideally start at that layer at least, so that the transactional aspects are taken care of, and then we can get into the detailed ones, or the overall ones.
Perfect.
Hope that helps.
Yeah. Yep, perfect. Thanks a lot. I think it answered his questions as well, and
Awesome.
I guess that's about it. Thank you so much, Harsha, for joining this session, providing insights on ONDC
Absolutely.
and its relation with blockchain. It's quite beneficial to the community as well. In case anybody else missed the video, they'll be able to have this access on YouTube itself. So no worries. Anyone needs to connect with Harsha, I've also provided his LinkedIn handle along with his email ID.
Sure.
Yeah, so I just
Do
wanted to
reach out to
thank
me if
you
you
for your
want.
effort.
Hey, thanks for that. Just a point for the viewers: if they want to want the deck or something, just reach out to me. I can share it across. Not a challenge.
Sure, perfect. Thanks a lot for that.
Sure, great. Hey, thanks for the. Thanks for the. Bye.
All right,
Have,
Harsha. Thanks for joining in. Have a great night. Bye bye.
thanks.